dealership of WCTC.
Speak up and be heard on Jersey issues that matter most to you. Call Jersey Central with Bert Barron now at 732-545-9282 or toll free at 888-545-9282. Your state, your home, your voice. Jersey Central with Bert Barron.
That's a lovely accent you have. New Jersey?
On the new Talk Radio 1450 WCTC.
7:09, it's hour number 2 of Jersey Central, a Friday morning on the new Talk Radio WCTC, the voice of Central Jersey. It is Bert Barron. We're inside the Forge Jeweler Studios today. Sunshine, 76, back to the 90s we go. Full forecast coming up at 7:15. We'll do our contest a little bit later on today, and a very special guest who will join me later on this hour, who is going to be delivering a keynote speech at a very special event that is happening at the Pines Manor in Edison. I'm so excited to have her as my special guest later in this hour, and I'll tell you who that's going to be coming up. But right now, let's get to the Raritan Bay Medical Center Jersey Newsmaker Hotline. We're joined this morning by the Professor of Political Science at St. Peter's University in Jersey City to discuss who we think is going to be Donald Trump's selection for vice president. So let's welcome back Professor Alain Sanders to Jersey Central and WCTC. Professor, welcome back. It's Bert Barron. How you doing this morning?
Hi, Bert. Thank you. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I guess if you back up, and all indications were leading that it will be Mike Pence, the governor of Indiana, who's going to be selected by Donald Trump. But now we won't know officially until over the weekend. Was this a good move by Donald Trump to delay this announcement?
Well, it's hard to know whether it's a good move or a bad move, and it's really hard to know what the motivations are for Donald Trump. Now, of course, he says that the horrific incidents in France are the reason for the delay. I suppose that's right. That's a good reason. It also adds drama to the whole selection process, and it puts attention on Donald Trump and on the Republican convention that is coming up next week. So there's a whole set of mixed possibilities here, but it certainly draws attention to Donald Trump and his campaign.
If there's something that Donald Trump knows in intimate detail, it is the news cycle, because he could just say, well, let's let this go a little bit, let it kind of simmer down a little bit, and then I'll make my announcement and it won't get lost in other things that are happening around the world. Maybe that's his mindset with this decision.
Well, that could very well be. Certainly the whole news cycle was dominated yesterday and will be dominated today still by the horrific incidents in Nice, France. And so in terms of news coverage, it certainly makes sense to delay, but also in terms of humanity and human decency, there's much to be said for delaying this as well.
Well, let's say that the reports are true, and it will be Mike Pence, the governor of Indiana. Size him up as a potential VP candidate. A big help to Donald Trump. What's your take on him?
Well, I think he certainly fits the traditional profile of a vice presidential candidate, somebody who the nominee thinks could be president should the need arise, somebody who draws attention and can be helpful in the electoral cycle. Governor Pence is from the middle of the country, and that's an area that could be very fertile for Donald Trump. And thirdly, somebody with congressional experience, because the vice president, going back now several presidencies, has tended to be a former member of Congress, a senator or a representative, because, of course, the president needs to work with Congress, and it's helpful to have an insider help him out. So he fits the traditional profile of recent vice presidential candidates.
I think with Donald Trump, Professor, there's always this you just never know angle with him, whether anything that he does, whether he was on television, whether it was his business dealings over the years or whatever, there's always this sort of aura around him as, well, maybe this is it or maybe this isn't it. Any chance of a last-minute sort of like eyebrow-raising wild card that just comes out of nowhere and is the pick? Do you see that possibly happening?
Well, with Donald Trump, that certainly is a possibility. Now, everything was pointing to Governor Pence yesterday and even the whole week, really. But with Donald Trump, you never know. He has an impulsive nature. He can act impulsively, and, of course, that's his great gift, and that's why many people are attracted to him. It's also his great bad point. That's why many people feel that he would be not a good president and even dangerous to be president. Impulsivity is in the nature of Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's true. Our guest this morning is Professor Alain Sanders, Professor of Political Science at St. Peter's University in Jersey City. Now, it's on to the convention next week, as you had mentioned there. And what do you think the atmosphere is going to be like there? Is this party finally beginning to kind of unify behind Donald Trump and realize that he's the guy and he's their best chance when we get to November?
Well, the party is not unified. There are lots of problems in the party that you probably won't see at the convention. Certainly, a lot of powerful Republican insiders are staying away. Both senators, governors, and other insider politicians are staying away. They don't want to have anything to do with it. The convention is in the process of losing money at the moment. There's a desperate call for donors to help pay for the convention. But, of course, the convention itself will be staged, and Donald Trump and his allies will try to make every effort to make it look solid, unified, and cheerful and supportive of Donald Trump. But if you look beyond the actual spectacle, there's still lots of problems within the Republican Party.
And it seems like following this convention here with all the speeches, and it kind of gets a lot of attention for a full week there, we always see sort of a spike in the numbers for the candidates there. Do you expect to see something like that for Donald Trump at the conclusion of the convention?
It all depends on how it unfolds, so we'll have to wait and see. But if the convention unfolds traditionally, that is to say speeches, cheers, and at least a show of unification, yes, conventions provide a poll bump to all the nominees that have been nominated. So one would expect that to happen for Donald Trump. And don't forget that, of course, the Democrats follow immediately the week thereafter, and they can be expected to have a bump. So we'll have to see how permanent those bumps are for the GOP convention, because it's being followed immediately by the Democrats, and then we'll have to see how the Democrats handle their own convention.
There'll be some very interesting goings-on for the next couple of weeks, and Professor Sanders will be back with us frequently to kind of update things and take us right on through November, as should be a pretty interesting couple weeks here with the conventions, and then it's back to the campaign trail, and I cannot wait for the first debates, Professor Sanders. Get the popcorn out and hunker in at home and see what's going to happen with those debates, right?
Absolutely. Interesting is the operative word for the upcoming elections.
I like that. Always interesting to have you with us, Professor Sanders. Have a great weekend, and thank you for your time this morning, all right?
My pleasure, Bert. You take care.
All right, you too. Thank you. All right, my guest, Professor Alain.